Okay, it's 12 o'clock, so I'm going to start the webinar now. So welcome to all of you, those of you who are offer holders, and those of you who are potentially interested in joining the course. The recruitment is still open. So my name is Dr. William Ford. I'm the course director for the Masters in Clinical Research. I'm going to go through some of the key points of the course with you today. There's an opportunity for you to ask any questions you might have. There's a question and answer section down at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to type anything into that as we go along, and I'll attempt to answer those questions that are in there at the end of the webinar. It's not your last opportunity to ask any questions. You can still email us. There's an email address that I'll give you at the end of the presentation that you can email any questions you might have to. So the aim of the program is essentially to give graduates knowledge and skills that they can then use to undertake clinical research in commercial or NHS or academic settings. The idea is to try and improve your employability and career progression by having evidence of an expertise and knowledge in the area of clinical research. The course is specifically designed to allow students to enroll on the course and progress through the course whilst in full-time employment. So this means that we take account of the fact that you're not available normally 9 to 5 during weekdays, and we schedule live sessions for after hours in the evenings or weekdays or at weekends. So it's specifically designed for you if you are in full-time employment. So the way we support your learning through the course, you all have a personal tutor. So a personal tutor is assigned to you, not just for academic reasons, but also to help you with any sort of pastoral care issues you might have, signpost you to support networks that we have in the university that once you're a student, you then get access to. There are online tutorials, so these can be either live, so you're actually live online with someone like me, on a webinar similar to this, which will allow you to ask questions as we go along, or maybe pre-recorded and maybe tutorials and question and answer sessions on bulletin boards that allow you to access when you're able to. We also will host discussion forums that allow you to interact not just with academic members of staff who deliver material, but also with your course mates. People come with quite diverse backgrounds to the course, and often the sharing of information across your peers is actually very useful and a good learning tool for people on the course. We run formative assessment exercises. We understand that many of you may have been out of education for a considerable period of time, and the idea of coming back and undertaking assessments can be quite daunting. So we do have formative assessments which are effectively marked for you to give you a guide of what you would need to do to get good marks and do well on the course. So these are not marks that count towards your final degree. They're just there to indicate to you how you're doing and give you a guide about how you could improve your work when we do the summative assessments, which do then in fact count towards your final degree. As a student of Cardiff University, you'll have excellent online library facilities. So our library facilities are really extremely good. We ensure that the materials that we use, that we teach to, are available to you through the library services. So we don't point you to textbooks that you can't get access to outside of our library. There is no need to purchase any textbooks or any material in order to be able to undertake this course. Everything is provided for you. Related to that, we also have the software that you might require through the course is available to you to download as a student. So for example, all the Microsoft Office features, so Word, Excel, Outlook, all of these sorts of things are available to you to download. Statistical software for data analysis is also provided, so you will have access to SPSS, which is a statistics package that you can download and then use as required through the course. Summative assessments are the way we gauge how well you've met the learning outcomes to provide an indication of your progress through the course. So obviously these are the things that you need to do well on in order to get a good grade at the end of the course. So what do we require in order for you to accept you onto the course? Well, it's relatively straightforward. If you have a degree in a relevance area of 2-1 or higher, then you would be qualified, you would be able to join the course. In lieu of a degree, we also accept relevant work experience in an area of clinical research. So this is possible. So if you don't have an undergraduate degree, or if you don't have a 2-2 or above, we can still consider you for the course. And it's based purely on work experience, whether we can justify that you have the background that's needed, the baseline level of knowledge in order to be able to go through the course successfully. If your first language is not English, then we will require an IELTS score of 6.5 overall. More information can be obtained about that from the admissions team. The email address is provided for you at the end of the webinar. One of the things we ask from you is a personal statement of your background and why you want to study the program. This helps us in order to understand what you want to get out of the program, and therefore we can tailor the program to specific areas that might be of interest to you, and it helps us ensure that the program meets your needs. It also gives us a little bit more information about the students that we want to accept. So it's quite an important part, and we do appreciate people providing this statement for us. So the structure of the program is relatively straightforward. All of our modules are 20 credit modules, so that means each one will contribute 20 credits to the overall program of 180 credits, which is the master's program. So in year one, we have 3 20 credit modules that together all add up to 60 credits, which would allow you then to progress on to year 2. In year 2, we have 2 20 credit modules that you have to undertake. But in addition to that, there are optional modules, which I'll go through in a minute. And you will take one of those 20 credit optional modules to make up a total of 120 credits with successful completion of year 2. Having got 120 credits, you can then progress on to year 3. Year 3 is the clinical research project. This is a research project that you undertake in your own time. You have a supervisor appointed by the school to help you progress through this and help you in the write-up of a thesis, which is then provided at the end of the year. That's then marked, and you will get the additional 60 credits, which will then complete the 180 credits you need in order to be awarded a master's project. We have a wide variety, a diverse collection of research projects. We have students who will develop their own research project that may be aligned to what your employer wants to do. We can also help you by providing projects that may be suitable for you or may interest you in undertaking. So we have a wide variety. In recent times, I'm sure you're all aware of COVID and the impact COVID has had on the ability to be able to undertake clinical practice and clinical research. So we've also developed a portfolio of rapid systematic reviews that enables us to be able to complete research projects, even if you don't have access to clinical facilities, patients or health workers and the like. So we could be quite flexible about what that project entails, and there's a lot of support for you from the school in undertaking that project. So if we just go through the modules, in year 1, we have Molecule to Man. So Molecule to Man is all about the journey that a pharmaceutical or a medicinal product will take from its discovery. So what is the need for this thing? What drove the discovery? All the way through to preclinical testing. So you go through toxicology, preclinical models, so animal models of disease, and what the impact these are on the development process. So you may not be aware, but at the beginning of a program of development, a company may start with hundreds of different candidate molecules. And by the time they get to clinical testing, that gets whittled down to 1. So what are the decisions that have to be made about a product, and what are known before you go to clinical research? What's the information that you should have if you're engaged in early stage researching comes from the development process. So in order to help you with that, there's 106, PhD 106, which is clinical pharmacology. Now that encompasses both pharmacology itself, so the drug action, as well as pharmacokinetics. And pharmacokinetics is very important in determining dosages. So obviously when you first start dosing in man, you need to understand what the kinetics of a drug are in order to be able to estimate correctly what dose to give people. If you get that wrong, it can have quite disastrous consequences. So that's all the clinical pharmacology. And once you've moved through all the preclinical testing, Then you're into the early stage investigation. So these are the first steps that you have to go through. So in this module, we introduce data analysis, because obviously that's a very important part of the toolkit when you're looking at clinical research. We also look at ethics. So what are the ethical procedures? What are the ethical parameters that you need to conform to in order to undertake clinical research? And we go through the various processes of phase 1 and phase 2 investigations. Alongside that, there's consideration of the regulatory authorities that govern the investigations in humans. And we look across major global areas. So, for example, we'll look at the EU, UK. Now those two are slightly diverging, but still relatively similar. The FDA and also Japan, so major areas of the globe. So once you complete all of these, then you'd move into the second year. And the second year is looking at the late phase clinical trials in PhD 205. So this is looking at phase 3 and phase 4 clinical trials. So this usually is involving larger cohorts of patients. And in these phases, you're looking at side effects and efficacy of drug in treating particular conditions, or a therapeutic doesn't have to be a drug. PhD 206 is all about what happens once a drug has been approved, once a therapy has been approved and is then released into the market. That's not the end of clinical research. In some ways, it's merely the beginning. There can be an awful lot of work that follows a drug once it's been approved for use in healthcare systems. And certainly approval doesn't necessarily mean use. So, for example, in the UK, we have NICE that looks at the clinical data and does a cost-benefit analysis. Most healthcare systems are limited economically, so you can't just release everything and have everybody be able to take anything that's approved. There is a process by which there is rationing, unfortunately, especially in the UK, where we've got a publicly funded healthcare system. This means that there are things that have to happen once a drug has been approved. So the clinical research process doesn't stop with marketing. Another example of a continuing research process is pharmacovigilance, where you're actually looking for side effects. Sometimes rare side effects only become apparent after market authorization, and you need to be able to have processes to detect those and react to them. So you may have heard of drugs that have been withdrawn from use even though they have been approved, and that would be an example of when a side effect has been identified after approval and it's only become apparent once the drug has been given to larger numbers of patients post-approval. So then we come on to the optional modules. Now these optional modules have been designed across a number of different topics. The idea is to give you some ability to be able to choose an area of study that's related to your interest or the interests of your employer. So we have a number of different 20 credit modules that are on offer, and you would select one of these at the end of the first year, and you would study that then in the second year. So let's have a look at the different offerings that we currently have. So at the moment, these are the options that you get to choose from. So the first one, PhD 221, is about diagnostic tools and medical devices. So diagnostic tools are becoming more and more important. So the idea of personalized medicine. Personalized medicine is a little bit of a holy grail. It's not something that I think is eminently feasible. But the diagnostic tools certainly help with stratified medicine. In other words, getting the right drug at the right dose to the right patient. In addition to that, medical devices is becoming more and more important in how they're regulated and how they're researched. So things like pacemakers are the most obvious ones, but even things like dermal fillers, for example, they're classified as a medical device. These sorts of things are becoming more and more important. PhD 222 is all about the CNS, so disease of the CNS like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and associated mental health issues like depression. These are all covered in PhD 222. This is mainly taught through, in fact, all of these are mainly taught through case history analysis. So we provide you with case histories and you'll get to go through those case histories, and we'll highlight different aspects that the case histories will demonstrate to you about how you conduct research and what the issues are we're trying to conduct clinical research in these areas. So the CNS and mental health is covered in PhD 222. PhD 223 is the cardiovascular and the respiratory system. So things like chronic heart failure, asthma, COPD are covered in this particular module. PhD 224 is cancer, biologics, and gene therapy. So cancer is one of the main areas where biologics are being developed at the moment. So it's a big growth area of using these antibodies, monoclonal antibodies in the treatment of cancer. Gene therapy also, you'll find that cancer is one of the main areas where gene therapy is being proposed for use. So that's the reason why they're present in this particular module. PhD 224 is particularly relevant given the current circumstances of COVID and that it deals with infection and immunity. So again, it's looking at how we treat bacterial, viral infections and how we can prevent transmission. So biocides, antibiotic stewardship and things like that. Immunity is obviously going to deal with autoimmune diseases, although diseases such as asthma, which can be classified as being an inflammatory disease, is dealt with in its particular place into a PhD 223. So immunity, really, we're looking at autoimmune type diseases in this particular module. So this is the current diet that's available to you. You choose one of these to study in the second year. Each of them are 20 credits. The assessment of these is all the same. So it's all designed to be a mini systematic review for each of them and associated portfolio tasks. I should actually mention at the moment that that's something that's common across all of our modules. We have a learning portfolio in each of the assessments of all of our modules. The learning portfolio is designed to go alongside what you're being taught to allow you to demonstrate that you've understood and you've been able to use the information that we taught you. So there's a vehicle that we can use to assess that, how you're getting on in the course and provide the feedback in terms of a mark for you. So the final year then. So the final year is the Master's Research Project. This allows you to apply knowledge and understanding you've gained throughout the first 2 years of the course. The research topics are determined collaboratively. So we don't just impose research topics on you. You are perfectly allowed to come up with your own area of study, your own topic. It has to be suitable, so we do have to approve it. But often what happens is that even if we don't like the initial idea, with discussions with us means that we can tailor it so that it actually fits what it would need to be. We have to ensure that you meet the criteria necessary to be able to award a master's, and that's effectively what that's all about, just to make sure that you do meet those particular criteria. There is a huge range of projects available. I mean, effectively, you could choose your own area of research that you want to go into. There are a number of different projects that we can offer to you as if you don't want to design your own, then there are a number of projects that are available that you can choose from to undertake as part of your final year. With COVID, the impact of COVID, this has actually been more prominent in the recent years. We've done more of this than we have in the past, purely because it's not been possible for candidates to be able to, or students to be able to come up with their own projects, purely because of the restrictions that have been imposed by COVID. So what we'll do is, once we've approved your topic, we'll identify a project supervisor who will then be able to guide you through your study from the initial stages of setting it up through to the analysis and writing up of your thesis. So that's an ongoing process that happens throughout the entire year. The assessment of this module is all based on your final dissertation. So you write up a dissertation and submit it, it's marked, and then that gives you the mark for the 60 credits of this particular module. Hopefully it's like the pinnacle of your achievement through the Masters, and it demonstrates your skills that you've developed throughout the course. And you can use it as a tool to give to prospective employers or people involved on promotions to demonstrate your understanding and ability to be able to apply the principles of clinical research. So what are the distinctive features? Well, I've already alluded to most of these already, but we'll just go through them quickly again. So the program we offer is a distance learning program. There is no requirement for you to come to Cardiff to study. It's designed for people who are in full-time employment. So we're designing it around the fact that you're working full-time, which means that we schedule teaching sessions outside of normal working hours, be that after hours during weekdays or at weekends. Course content comes from people within Cardiff University who are experts in their field, and we also have people from outside Cardiff University for expertise in pharmaceutical industry. So you can be sure you're getting the information from very well qualified and experienced people. The optional modules in year 2 will allow you to tailor your studies towards your own or your employer's interests. So hopefully make it that much more interesting for you in that you can specialize in an area of your choice from a selection that we can provide. Throughout your studies, you'll have access to a personal tutor in addition to a research supervisor as well. So the personal tutor, don't forget, is not purely about providing academic support. They're also there to signpost other support services should you need them. As a student of Cardiff University, you have access to all the support services that are provided by the university. We will facilitate interaction with other students on the course. So there are online forums where you can chat with other students and you can swap experiences of particular parts of the course that you may encounter. We often find that students also set up their own communication groups, such as WhatsApp, and we encourage that. So that's absolutely fine. We don't moderate those ones that we don't set up. So the only ones that we'll moderate are the ones that we officially set up, and therefore we can provide feedback on things that are covered in that forum. But you're more than welcome to set up your own. And as I say, in past, students frequently have their own groups to be able to swap this sort of information. Right, that is the last slide. Sorry, just pull this back up again. So on this slide, you can see the email if you need any further information, if you have any other questions that occur to you after this and you haven't written down the Q&A, then please feel free to email us at this address and we'll try and get you answers as soon as possible. We have a website where you can have a look for the information that will be provided for you again if you want a refresher about what we've covered today. So with that, I'm going to end the webinar. I'll open up the question and answer pad and see what questions there and try and answer them as best I can. If you have any questions at the moment, then please feel free to type them into the Q&A and I'll answer them as best I'm able to. Okay, so one of the questions is, I'm not very good at statistics. Is there any support for this to learn to use SPSS? The answer is yes, and it's a very good question. The data analysis is something that people do find very, very scary. Understandably, it does look very difficult to begin with. There is a lot of support for using packages such as SPSS. We teach this very much from the basics up. So we don't assume that you have any statistical knowledge at all. So we assume that you're starting as a blank sheet, and then we'll provide you with the skills and the tools that you need in order to progress up to be able to carry out relatively high-level statistical analysis. We don't go into the super complicated because there is a stage at which you shouldn't be doing that on your own. You should seek, professional statistical advice. But we'll give you the ability to be able to go up to, if you know the terminology, up to ANOVA and understand how ANOVA is applied and take you through the mechanics of how you run ANOVA tests in SPSS. We also look at non-parametric tests too, so we've also covered those. Things like chi-squared will also be covered. As I said, the SPSS software is available to you to download once you enroll in the course, so that software is free to you to use. We provide guidebooks, so a workbook of how to use SPSS. We give you data sets that we've already generated and walk you through the process of how you generate the analysis and then how you interpret the analysis. There's also some excellent textbooks available through the library, and we recommend those as part of our reading list, so we'll give you plenty of support in using those. Okay, any other questions? Nope, I think that's the only question we have so far. Does anyone else have any other questions you want to type into Q&A? It doesn't look like there is. So, oh, yes, there is. One pops up. Does any prior postgraduate study go against an application? What I think you're talking about is something that we call advanced standing, which means that if you've done previous modules in a different university, will that gain you exemption to studying modules on the course? Unfortunately, I'm afraid no, that isn't possible currently. It is something we're looking at, but we've got a very specific design to our course. So unless we can really see that there's a very good alignment with one of our modules, it's very difficult for us to provide a discount, if you like, of saying you're exempt from certain modules. The course is designed that one module builds upon another, and so it's very difficult for us to exempt people from a specific module. Our modules are intended to be delivered as standalone in addition, so if you are interested in specific modules, you can look into actually just studying a specific module, but that doesn't then build into the masters at the moment. I think the university is currently looking at how we might be able to manage that, where you can build up a portfolio of modules and then apply for a certification, a qualification on the basis of that. But at the moment, I don't think that's actually present. Oh, I see. You're not excluded from the course if you have some prior. No, you're not excluded. No, absolutely not. If you've got prior postgraduate study, that's absolutely fine. There is no exclusion from the course on the basis of you having any other prior postgraduate study. No, most definitely not. In some respects, that's quite welcome because at least you've got some experience of what undertaking postgraduate education is all about. Does that answer your question? Good. Okay. Can I answer anything else? Has anyone else got any other questions they want to ask? No? Well, as I say, please don't forget that any questions you might have, please do feel free to email us and we'll respond as quickly as possible to get you an answer. There's a very friendly team at the end of that email address, so by all means, please feel free to use it. So if there are no more questions. Oh, hold on. Is it expected your research project is conducted in your workplace? No, it's not expected. There is no requirement for you to conduct your research project in your workplace. Some of our students do use their workplace, and there are certain advantages associated with that, purely about your employer being interested in what you're doing. But there's absolutely no requirement for that to happen. And indeed, I would say the majority of our projects last year didn't happen within the workplace. They're all outside of the workplace. So that most certainly is not a requirement. Okay. Anything else? I'll give it another couple of minutes just in case people are typing. I think that's it. I don't see any more questions popping up. As I said, please do feel free to email us if you think of something later on. We're more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So all that's left is to thank you for attending, and I hope you found the presentation interesting and has at least answered some of your questions you might have had about the course. Look forward to seeing the applications coming in and reading your personal statements. As I say, they are quite important to us, so we do read them all. Something else coming? Closing date for applications. Now that I'm not entirely sure about. That's something you've stumped me on. I'm not entirely sure when that closing date is. I have a feeling that you've got till the end of August. I think that's correct, but please feel free to email the email address to get a definitive answer on when the actual closing date is. It may be a little bit after the end of August, but I don't think it's that long after. It's purely based on how long does it take us to be able to get enrollment. So how long will it take us to actually get you into the enrollment process and enroll you on the course? So it's not like it's a deadline from us saying that's a cutoff for applications. It's purely about how long it takes us to get you enrolled into the university. Yeah, sorry, it's a good question. Unfortunately, I'm stumped on that one. I don't actually have a definitive answer. Okay, well, I think that's it. We're getting up to half past the hour, so I'm sure half an hour of me speaking to you is probably enough. So do feel free to email us of anything extra that you might want to ask. As I say, look forward to receiving your application. Look forward to welcoming you in beginning of October. If you do have offers from us, I look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Take care. Goodbye.